A video featuring a supposed UFO has gone viral online, sparking a mix of curiosity and skepticism. The footage, captured by a plane passenger, shows a saucer-shaped object flying through the sky with the word "truff" visible on it. While many viewers initially thought the video was genuine, some quickly dismissed it as a hoax. The object in the video, resembling a typical UFO, was quickly associated with Truff, a popular hot sauce brand known for its bold advertising campaigns. Truff shared the video on their social media accounts, even adding a caption referencing UFO lore. Tom DeLonge was right. Despite the brand's involvement, it's unclear whether the Truff logo was added in post-production or if it was part of a marketing stunt. The video generated a lot of buzz on platforms like X, where users expressed doubt and humorously dissected the footage. Some are open to the idea that extraterrestrial life exists, while others point to certain religious beliefs as reasons to dismiss life beyond Earth. Then, there are those who refuse to believe, arguing that there's no concrete evidence of alien existence. However, for many, there's plenty of evidence. It's just been covered up. Strange lights in the sky, Area 51, government cover-ups, and more all come into play when the topic of aliens arises. And then there's Roswell, New Mexico, a place where something happened, and people have been arguing about it ever since. Here are 20 things to know about the Roswell UFO incident. Number 20. The beginning. So, where do we begin with something like Roswell? The most logical place to start is right at the beginning because there's no denying that something significant happened there. However, what followed this incident was a whirlwind of speculation, conspiracies, and denials regarding the truth. But the truth is out there, and I'll help you piece it together. Let's start from the beginning, which takes us back to 1947. The story doesn't actually begin with aliens, though. It starts with a rancher who lived about 75 miles from Roswell. Even before things spiraled out of control, there were already rumors of flying saucers and strange things in the skies over New Mexico. This is where W.W. Brazel enters the picture. One day, sometime in June or July of that year, he discovered a crash site on his property. I'll get into the details of what was found later, but what's crucial here is what Brazel did with it. Instead of keeping it to himself or going straight to the press, he decided to take it to the sheriff of Roswell, New Mexico. That's right, he went straight to the sheriff, who then took it to Colonel William Blanchard, the commanding officer at the Roswell Army Airfield. This is where a key part of the Roswell mystery comes in. You'd think the colonel would have immediately covered it up, right? But he didn't. In fact, he made an official statement the very next day, noting that the team had recovered parts of a flying disc with help from the local sheriff's department. They even stated that they had personally investigated the crash site and gathered various materials from it. So, right from the start, we know there was some kind of crash, and they recovered something from it. After this, things start to get a bit more unclear, which is why we're diving into it. Before we continue, make sure to like this video, hit the subscribe button, and turn on notifications, or a centipede might crawl on your face while you sleep. Number 19. The crash remains. First off, there were never any official reports confirming that alien bodies were found at the crash site. I just want to clear that up from the start. Now, what was actually found and handed over to the sheriff and the military by the rancher were pieces of wreckage that Brazel, the ranch supervisor, had gathered. It amounted to just a couple of kilograms and included rubber-like sticks, shiny paper with some letters on it, lightweight metals, fiber optic cables, and tape. Not exactly the kind of materials you'd expect from an alien spacecraft or probe. But did that stop conspiracy theorists and others from assuming otherwise? Not at all. What's also important is that the government made several missteps when it came to explaining the wreckage. So what was really found there? You have to keep in mind the press release from the colonel, and not long after that, the U.S. military swooped in and changed the story. They claimed it wasn't a flying disc at all, but rather just a weather balloon that had crashed on the rancher's land. Now, let's pause for a moment and think this through logically. Weather balloons did exist at the time, but they don't quite match up with the materials found on the ranch. After all, why would a weather balloon have glossy paper with letters on it, or fiber optic cables? Tape, too, is definitely not something you'd expect to find on a high-quality weather balloon from the government, nor are the metals that were discovered. So, this only fueled suspicions and made people think the government was trying to cover something up. Whether you believe in aliens or not, it's clear that some kind of cover-up was likely happening, at least to some extent. But for now, let's focus on the key details you're most interested in. Number 18. Aliens. Where did the first reports of alleged aliens in Roswell come from? That can be traced back to events that happened 7 years after the initial incident. In this case, near Roswell, the United States Air Force conducted what they called dummy drop tests. They created human-like dummies that were dropped from weather balloons. But why were they doing these tests? There are a few possible reasons. They may have been studying the impact on humans from a height, or testing how well weather balloons could handle carrying human dummies. While we never received a full explanation, we do know that these tests occurred in 1954. When you factor in mysterious craft floating in the air and beings found on the ground after they were dropped, people became curious and started looking for answers. Sure enough, people claimed to have found what they thought were alien bodies on the ground. Due to their grayish appearance, these dummies didn't seem like they were from Earth. When people got closer, they swore the figures had only 4 fingers. The likely explanation is that the dummies were damaged upon impact, and people weren't thinking clearly when they discovered them. The gray skin, thin frames, and missing fingers led to the belief that these were aliens. At the same time, people recalled the mysterious incident in 1947 involving government interference and a craft that crashed on a rancher's land. The more people suspected something was being hidden, the more theories emerged. In other words, they connected the dots and convinced themselves that what they had found was real. This is how the Roswell incident gained traction in the media. But the story doesn't end there. Number 17. The President Speaks. One unfortunate outcome of people believing in aliens is that anyone who does is often labeled as crazy. But that's simply not true. Many logical, rational, and intelligent people believe in the possibility of extraterrestrial life, or at least accept that it could exist somewhere in the vast universe. A prime example of this is former U.S. President Jimmy Carter. Known as the Peanut President due to his family's peanut farm, Carter was also regarded as one of the more intelligent presidents, never hesitating to use complex vocabulary to explain his ideas. Before he became president, something intriguing happened. While serving as governor of Georgia, his home state, Carter claimed to have seen a UFO. Specifically, he reported seeing a glowing self-luminous object in 1973. Clearly, this didn't hurt his political career. When he was campaigning for president in 1976, Carter not only stood by his UFO sighting, but also promised to release all government records on UFOs, so the public could know the truth about what, if anything, was in the sky, whether it was human-made or something else. Did he keep his promise? Once in office, and likely briefed on the full details, he revealed that releasing those documents would pose a national security risk. Talk about a letdown. The irony, however, is that the government eventually did release several UFO-related documents and even held hearings in Congress about the matter, raising questions about their authenticity and meaning. While we still can't say for certain whether aliens exist, there are mysteries the government can't explain, though they might be trying to keep those secrets hidden. Number 16. The Coverup Uncovered. Remember how I mentioned that when Roswell confirmed a flying disc was discovered, the military quickly changed its story to the weather balloon explanation? Well, that version stuck around as the official account for quite some time, until people started reflecting on the events at Roswell and questioning whether the government had told them the full truth. Shocking, right? Fast forward to the 1990s, and UFO sightings were being reported across the country by everyone from everyday citizens to military personnel. This renewed attention on Roswell and the cover-up that had actually taken place. In response, the military introduced a new explanation for what supposedly happened there. According to the government, the flying object wasn't a weather balloon after all. It was a nuclear testing balloon, part of Project Mogul, a top-secret Air Force mission that used microphones on high-altitude balloons to detect Soviet atomic bomb tests. It's important to remember that although World War II had ended in 1947, the Cold War was in full swing, and the Soviet Union had successfully developed and tested the most powerful atomic bomb. This was a tense period, and the government was determined to monitor any potential threats to the U.S. from the air. Now, back to the materials found at the crash site. Many of these items, such as paper and fiber optic cables, were actually new technologies the military was testing for their detection balloons. But to the average person, these unfamiliar materials seemed out of this world. So, they were believed to be alien in origin. Did this explanation put an end to all the UFO sightings? Well, as time has shown, that answer is a bit more complicated. Number 15. The State of Roswell. When a story becomes synonymous with a place, something pretty typical happens: the opportunity for profit. Roswell is no exception, where greed has taken center stage as people continue to believe in the alien connection to their small New Mexico town, something that has persisted for nearly 80 years. If you were to visit Roswell today, you'd find all kinds of alien-themed merchandise and memorabilia celebrating the events that made the town famous. Let's face it, without the two incidents and the ensuing hysteria, Roswell would probably be just another town in New Mexico that most people have never heard of unless they live nearby. To keep the tourism alive, they continue to push the alien narrative, even though the government and other sources have long debunked it. Do the locals mind? Not at all. Much like being part of an exclusive club, they take pride in their town's peculiar history. Sure, not everyone believes in aliens, but enough visitors come each year to keep the story alive in the public's imagination. And you can bet Hollywood is more than happy to profit from it. Number 14. Pop culture. In the United States, when there's an opportunity to profit from a story, especially one that can be used in Hollywood, they're all over it. As you can imagine, there have been countless TV shows and movies about the Roswell incident and the theories surrounding it, or they've taken the story into a more fantastical direction, imagining what might have happened if aliens had truly visited. In fact, there were not one but two drama series specifically about Roswell, Roswell and Roswell, New Mexico. How original, right? Both shows ran for the same length of time, with 30 years between them. Coincidence? There were also documentaries about the event, featuring TV and movie stars like Martin Sheen. But why is Hollywood so eager to capitalize on Roswell? Simple. It's a captivating story. Even if you don't believe in aliens, just imagine being one of the residents of Roswell back in 1947, before the government released information and long before the age of the Internet. What would you have believed? How would you have felt knowing that your town might be housing aliens or that extraterrestrial beings were flying overhead? Those feelings are the foundation for compelling stories, which is why people continue to revisit it, even though it's largely been debunked. After all, Hollywood isn't exactly known for its originality these days. Number 13. Project Mogul. I've touched on this before, but let's take a deeper look at what Project Mogul really was, especially if you're unsure how it was supposed to function. It wasn't just about detecting incoming bombs, it was designed to monitor bomb testing in Russia. The idea was to set up microphones at high altitudes to capture the sound waves from explosions. It was actually a pretty clever concept, and an example of how people come up with quick solutions to big problems. To clarify, it's not surprising they chose New Mexico for the testing. Many military experiments, especially those involving the Air Force, take place in remote areas like New Mexico and Nevada, as these locations are desolate and harder to spy on due to limited satellite and other surveillance technologies at the time. So, what happened to Project Mogul? Well, it was eventually shut down due to the high cost and its unreliability in detecting bomb tests. They later developed a better system using seismic detectors and air samplers to monitor Soviet activities. One can only wonder if the alien hysteria could have been lessened if those tools had been available before Project Mogul. Number 12. Jesse Marcel. There aren't many names directly tied to the Roswell incident, but one name that certainly stirred the pot more was Major Jesse Marcel. He was the man sent to the crash site in 1947 to investigate what had happened there. He's famously the person in the photo with weather balloon debris and was involved in the cover-up surrounding the event. But is that the whole story? Not quite. Decades later, he was interviewed by a UFO expert and revealed that not only was there a cover-up, but the military had indeed found something extraterrestrial at the site. He gave several interviews about his experiences, which only fueled the public's interest. His son also claimed that his father had brought home a few fragments from the crash site that suggested it was alien in origin. What does this all mean? It's tough to say for sure. What's clear is that both Jesse Marcel and his son had reasons for saying what they did. But unfortunately, we may never know the full truth. Number 11. Alien Autopsy. Let's quickly touch on this one, as it's one of the sadder chapters in the Roswell incident, so much so that it ended up in the NFT world. Yes, you read that right. In 1995, long after the Roswell incident, a film titled Alien Autopsy was released, claiming to show the dissection of an alien caught on camera. What's the connection to Roswell? The film implied the alien being dissected was from the Roswell crash. Over the years, the film has been debunked and ridiculed, and eventually, with the rise of NFTs, the creators turned the entire movie into an NFT, selling it for $1 million. And that's why NFTs, in this case, deserve to go up in flames. They're trying to trick people into buying fake alien videos. If I wanted to watch something like that, I'd just check YouTube. Yes, I said it. Number 10. Glenn Dennis. Here's another individual connected to the Roswell incident who may have unintentionally fueled the controversy even more. Glenn Dennis was a former mortician in Roswell, and it's said that he was contacted several times by the local Air Force base, the one that made the initial statement about the so-called balloon crash, asking him how they could preserve bodies, particularly if they could be hermetically sealed in caskets. If this actually happened, it would have been highly suspicious. Over the years, his credibility has been questioned, especially when he teamed up with someone from the Air Force Base to create a UFO museum and went on a speaking tour to share his story across various shows. He even had an episode of Unsolved Mysteries dedicated to his account. Today, however, he's not seen as a reliable source about the events that took place there. Number 9. The Aztec UFO hoax. Sadly, whenever a major event stirs up significant attention, it's inevitable that some will try to capitalize on it, whether for personal gain or just to play a prank. In this case, in Aztec, New Mexico, a supposed UFO crash occurred in 1948, just 1 year after the Roswell incident rocked the area. The story was first published in 1949 by author Frank S. Kay in his Variety magazine columns and later in his 1950 book, Behind the Flying Saucers. In the mid-1950s, the story was revealed to be a hoax concocted by two con artists, Silas M. Newton and Leo A. Gebauer, who were trying to scam people into buying alien technology. To further discredit the story, it was so flimsy that even the FBI didn't bother investigating it. Number 8. Crash at Corona. Stanton Friedman, the UFO expert who interviewed several of the individuals mentioned earlier, went to great lengths to prove UFOs were real. In 1992, he published a book titled Crash at Corona. The book claimed that not only did the FBI and other government agencies have UFOs and aliens in their possession, but that they were using a spy network to monitor calls and other communications to get ahead of the public. While it is true that the government has spied on its citizens, this particular story was debunked in numerous ways, and many of the claims made in the book about how the FBI and others operated were shown to be impossible, given the technology available at the time. Number 7. The Roswell Report. When enough people complain about something, it's only a matter of time before someone responds. This was the case with the Roswell Report, which was essentially a new account of the incident by the government in the 1990s, when more people started demanding the truth about what had happened and whether a cover-up was involved. Ironically, the congressman from New Mexico was one of the driving forces behind the report's release. This is when we learned about Project Mogul and many of the other significant details that have already been discussed. Of course, not everyone accepted the report's findings, but that's on them. For once, the military did their job. Number 6. Philip J. Corso. Another mysterious figure connected to the Roswell incident is Officer Philip J. Corso, an Army intelligence officer stationed in Roswell who wrote a book titled The Day After Roswell. Want to guess what the book was about? It was Corso's personal take on the events surrounding the crash and the days that followed. He released it on the 50th anniversary of the Roswell incident, making several claims, including that he saw an alien body in a glass coffin. When the book was published, many in the UFO community not only believed his theories, but suggested that he might have been a government plant intended to discredit the UFO movement. It's not the strangest theory I've heard, because if you want to kill a movement, you discredit it in the public eye. Number 5. Trump on Roswell. In 2020, during his re-election campaign, President Trump was interviewed by his son Donald Jr. and asked about Roswell, specifically if he would declassify all the details so the public could finally know what really happened. Trump admitted he knew something interesting about those events, but seemed unwilling to share it. As expected, he didn't reveal anything, and he lost the election to Joe Biden. So, does Trump know something about Roswell? Probably more than most. Every president who's served after or during the Roswell incident has likely asked someone about it to get the real story. If you're curious about the truth, it seems the best way to find out is to get elected to the White House. Number 4. Flying saucers are real. To be fair, Flying Saucers Are Real was written by Donald Kehoe and published in 1950, right around the time of the Roswell incident. The book compiled accounts of various UFO crashes between 1947 and 1950 and was sold for just $2.50. Quite the bargain for a read. The irony is that the book wasn't just a success, but played a significant role in fueling UFO hysteria and the public's belief in extraterrestrials for years to come. Kehoe even wrote an article based on the book, which became one of the most read pieces in magazine history. Number 3. HangarEighteen. Here's a question for all the alien aficionados out there. If alien bodies were found at crash sites in the United States, where would they be taken? The obvious answer is a military base or secret facility, where they would be stored and studied. That brings us to HangarEighteen, one of the more well-known black sites rumored to have housed alien debris and possibly life forms, including those from the Roswell incident. The hangar is mentioned in several books about UFO crashes, and it gained quite a bit of popularity. The catch, however, is that there's no official record confirming the existence of such a base. But of course, the argument is that if it did exist, it shouldn't be easy to find, though we do know Area 51 exists, and we still don't know what's inside it. Number 2. Mummified Aliens. This isn't about New Mexico, but Mexico. In 2023, Mexican scientists reportedly presented mummified alien bodies to their country's Congress, along with X-rays to show how real they were. Naturally, this would raise a lot of eyebrows. But here's the twist. If these bodies were real, wouldn't the story have been much more widely reported by now? It's odd that the news only surfaced recently, and that raises questions about the credibility of the claims. Number 1. Visiting the crash site. If you need one final piece of evidence regarding Roswell, here it is. 71 years after the original incident, the site was opened to the public. Yes, you can now visit the ranch where the original balloon crash occurred and stand where history was made. But here's the thing. If there was even the slightest chance that something alien-related or something compromising to the government remained at the site, do you really think they would have opened it to the public? Probably not. So, with all of this in mind, do you feel like you have a better grasp on the Roswell incident and its mysteries? Do you believe in aliens? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below, and don't forget to check out the other fascinating topics on screen. See you next time. So, thanks for watching this video. We would love to hear your thoughts on this in the comments below.